Good evening, welcome. This is a meeting of the Greenfield Zoning Board of Appeals. We're meeting in the John Zahn Center. It's December 19th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Chair statement. This meeting is being recorded. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify me, the chairperson, at this time. Anyone else recording this? In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. And if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Nice way to start, huh? Okay. Our first hearing, Mr. Clerk, can you please read the application?
Application for Robin and Joshua Candelaria for property located at 14 Lunt Drive, Assessor's Map R33, Lot 88, which is located in a rural residential RC zoning district for a special permit pursuant to sections 200-6.3, 200-8.3, and 200-8.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow a hairdressing business as a home occupation at this location.
And sitting on the panel are Eric
Green,
Debbie Jokes.
Peter Wozniak.
Jim Wynn.
David Singer. Okay, are Robin and Josh here? Can you please come up? Let's see. Okay, so tell us what you're doing, where you're doing it, and why you're doing it, please.
At the residence, 14 Lunt Drive.
Yep.
We have a 17 by 17 structure that's been there. Looking to bring her from her retail space on the Mohawk Trail to home. She's sort of scaling back a little bit. She's had some health issues over the last few years from long COVID. So she's going to be reducing her work schedule. Just figured it would be more convenient for her to be at home.
Okay.
It would also, minimize our expenses that we're having right now as far as retail location goes.
Okay, anything else? You want for the record, what occupation is it? Home occupations that you're doing?
Hairdresser.
Hairdresser. Hair salon, is that
Hair salon,
okay?
yes. Yep.
All right, any questions from any members of the board?
I drove out there today. It looks like a first class operation out there in the lunch hour. Looks fantastic.
Appreciate it.
I have some questions. So I notice on the sketch, there's something called a tight tank.
Yes.
Now, what's the reason for that?
Her hair dyes, colors has to go into a tank, and then we have to get it pumped. It can't go into a septic tank.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a tight tank would have to be.
Okay, have you gone ahead and spoken to the Board of Health or done anything?
I've spoken to him. They said that he wouldn't approve it until we got approval from zoning. Then he'll come out and take a peek at the site.
But you understand that that's a condition, correct?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And who told you that that was the case?
Tight tank?
Yeah, that you need one.
I have other friends who, I have another gentleman who put a business at his home for his wife, and he needed a tight tank due to the hair chemicals. He's on septic as well because we're not on town sewer.
Right, I noticed
so
you.
If we were on town sewer, then we would.
You wouldn't need that.
We wouldn't need a tight tank.
So tell me a little bit about the kind of chemicals. It's not a time of using hairspray anymore, is it? Besides, I might need it, but besides anybody else.
Just like hair color. I don't do anything else. I just do hair color. I do 2 perms, 2 clients that do perms. Other than that,
Anything? Part of the things that we're concerned about is sort of smell getting out of the room. So if there was a condition that the smell had to stay inside the room, that's something you could achieve?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from any board members? Okay, that's it for you folks. Thank you. You can stay there. You can stay there. Does anybody from the audience want to comment on this particular application? I know you sent a list of people who support you, which is excellent. That's great. Good for you for doing that. Nobody here? All right. Can we close?
Mr. Chair, I have some correspondence.
Oh, you do? Great. Go ahead.
There's a memo here from the engineering superintendent dated November 19th, 2024. Zoning Board of Appeals special permit for Robin and Joshua Candelaria at 14 Mont Drive. No comments or issues with the project. I also have a letter from the Department of Planning and Development, again, November 19th, 2024, for Robin and Joshua Candelaria, 14 Lund Drive. No comment or issues with this project.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Does the board feel so inclined to just make a decision now before the next hearing? Would that work for everybody?
That would work, yes.
Okay. So we're going to do that right now. Usually we wait, but the next hearing won't be till 6:45, so we might as well do it. Would someone make a motion on the application?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application of Robin and Joshua Candelaria for property located at 14 Lund Drive, Assessors Map R33, Lot 88, which is located in the residential RC zoning district for a special permit pursuant to sections 200-6.3, 200-8.3, and 200-8.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow for a hairdressing business at a home location home occupation at this location with the following conditions.
Okay. Thank you. I made a list of some conditions just to get ahead of ourselves.
Why don't you go ahead? Unless somebody does.
What's that?
I said, why don't you want to?
Sure, I'd like to share them, yes. One is that, it's subject to the terms and conditions of the application. The second is that it must have a tight tank per the application and I assume, per state regulations. I noticed that when we do these home occupations, it refers over to a performance standard list in 6.8, which has to do with environmental things. So if we were to say that they would comply with the provisions of 6.8 of the zoning bylaw, I don't want to say you can't do this or can't do that, but you will have to. The idea of noxious chemicals or things going outside would be forbidden. Okay. And the last thing to discuss actually is, do we want this to be, and I don't have so much experience with it, running with the land or just with the applicant?
With the applicant.
With the applicant.
Okay. So with the applicant. All right. So we have 4 conditions. We have,
Could I just
Absolutely.
maybe just clarify? There was some statement that they had to do something with the Board of Health after. I forgot what the language was.
what they said?
Well,
We had to get the approval before our Board of Health would kind of get into details as far as tight tank location. He wanted, once we got the approval, he was gonna come out and take a look at the site and yay, nay, as far as whether it had to be, concrete tight tank or plastic tight tank. And then they come out, we have excavator come out, they dig a hole, tank gets set before everything gets backfilled. Board of Health comes back out, they take a look, make sure there's no leaching going on, make sure it's an actual legitimate tight tank before it gets sealed up.
I'd like that, the chair, is that the application is conditioned on what the Board of Health gives them for instruction.
Absolutely. That's fine.
Yep, not a problem.
I think it's a chicken and egg thing. They have to get this before they can get that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right. So that's additional language for the tight tank. Anything else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just a couple of things, for the record, who seconded that motion, please?
I'll second it.
Oh, there wasn't a second.
Good question.
Okay. And the other question is, let me repeat the 4 conditions,
Sure.
of approval, so that I properly, it's the approval subject to the submitted application materials.
To the terms and conditions of the application. Yep.
And conditions of the application materials. Second is, it must abide by the performance standards of the zoning ordinance, section 200-6.8.
Correct.
Third is, must have approval from the Board of Health for the tight tank. must have a tight tank approved by the Board of Health.
Well, how about we say that it has to have a tight tank, which must be the type and quality to be approved by the Board of Health. Or if you can use another word, that's fine.
And the last, there's this supposed to run with the land.
It will not run with the land. It'll run with the applicant.
Thank you.
Am I the one making all that noise? Okay, so anything else to be said before we vote on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, but the record show it's unanimous. Okay, you've received your approval. Congratulations. So before this approval becomes final, it gets sent to the clerk's office. I doubt anything will happen, but someone who has a right to may appeal it. And until that time period has gone by, which is 20 days after it's filed with the clerk, then it's not a solid granting of approval. Right? I doubt anybody's going to do that. I think you should go right away to the Board of Health and start getting the information that you need. And Eric, how does it work? Will you or the Board of Health, will you or the city clerk send them the approval with the 20 days having gone by, or just how does it work?
They will get, what I'll do, we let the Board of Health know that we will approve this application so they can go to the Board of Health. And then as part of the regular process, a copy is sent to the Board of Health.
And how about will the decision get sent to them,
Yes.
to the applicant?
Decision will be sent to you once it's clocked in with the city clerk and a letter with that saying when the appeal period starts, when it ends, what the next step is, recording when it's what the process is. It's all there in the approval letter that you'll get. Okay. As soon as we have the board come in and sign it and clock in.
So you'll have it in writing and the evidence. All right, congratulations, good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just so you know, it's incumbent upon us to wait for each of the time slots for the hearing so that people can be here and the applicant can arrive on time. So this is what we call dead time. 6:45. Only 3 minutes.
May I ask that everybody speak a little bit closer to the mics? You want to be about a hand's width away.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
For those who have walked in after I did the chair's statement, by state law, if you are taping or recording this meeting, you need to let me know. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the application for the 6:45 hearing. It's a continuation of the last.
Yep. It's a continuation from November 7th, 2024 ZBA meeting. It's an application for Verity Wireless LLC for property located at 112 Newton Street, Assessors Map R24, Lot 11, which is located in the General Commercial GC zoning district for a special permit pursuant to sections 200-4.9 C3, 200-7.14, 200-8.3, and 200-8.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow for the construction of a new communication structure comprised of a ground-based equipment cabinet and antennas mounted on the top of a monopole measuring 170 feet in height at this location.
Is anyone here from the applicant?
Yes, I'm here, Attorney Michael Cronin, and one of the members from Verity, George Kianis, is also on the Zoom hearing.
Okay. It's my understanding that that while tonight we were going to see a presentation, we're going to delay, by agreement, we're going to delay that until the January meeting so that we can have peer review information. And so you certainly are willing to listen and speak, but is there anything you want to say now? The two chores that we see tonight are picking a peer review expert, and there's been a request by local citizens to have us listen to someone that they would like to have us hear about some of the ramifications of these cell towers. So is there anything you'd like to say before we start doing our business?
No, nothing to add. Just that we spoke with the city planner, Eric Twarog, and he's aware of this situation, that when we originally filed the application, or when we started the process for the application, the address of the parcel was different than what it is now, and that's because the owner of the property had subdivided that, and subsequently the area where the monopole would be located was made a part of a different parcel that was neighboring it. So all of the plans, everything is the same. The parcel is exactly the same. It's just the address of the actual thing changed. And that has been updated by an amendment to our application, and with the subsequent variance application that we just filed, the correct address has been made. And then also the abutters list that we had sent out notifying people was the correct address and the correct abutters.
Okay, thank you. Eric, have we received the variance application?
Yes.
Okay. All right, members of the board, first thing we should do is talk about the peer review materials. Who wants to open that discussion?
Well, the question I have, Eric, is there's three proposals in front of them. Two, I think, clearly look at peer review of the installation of the cell tower, and the one from Cityscape seems a little bit more expansive than that. Looks like it's doing more than just looking at the cell tower installation. So I'm trying to understand what all the items are that are included in their proposal.
They were all given the same information, which is all application materials received by the applicant for Verity Wireless, with an explanation of that we need a firm with structural engineer experience and experience with wireless towers. So they were all given the same information, and this is what we received for responses. Cityscape is out of Florida, and quite frankly, I just accepted this one because they can legitimately put a cost estimate into it, but you need a certain amount for procurement purposes. You need at least 3 quotes. So this firm is from Florida, or at least their headquarters, and the other 2 are from Massachusetts firms.
Well, the reason I asked the question, if we were looking at a structural review, but they have one of the line items here is determination of compliance with applicable federal, state, local structural safety and RF exposure safety code. So I look at I think that means radio frequency. And, I'm just kind of looking, is that what we need when we're doing a peer review for a structural installation of the tower?
Typically, no.
So I mean, again, I look at this proposal, we're going to get, I think, information that probably would be nice to have, but I don't necessarily feel we need it for that aspect of a peer review. So I'd like to make a suggestion. I know if we want to make a decision to vote on this, but having just seen this, I think we should somehow call through here, going back to them saying, why did you include a number of items here that aren't for purely structural engineering review? They have to do with radio frequency and a number of other issues. Or do we want to commission them to do that and then use that information?
How did, Cityscape's not on the original list that you sent. How did they find out that this was going on?
So I have a list they actually reached out to the city. Somehow they heard about the project and called me up and said, we can give you a quote. And so I said, go ahead. That's how that happened.
Did the applicant make any recommendations on this list?
Yes, they did. The applicant recommended AEG Advanced Engineering Group, Chappelle Engineering Associates, and Dewberry Engineering.
Dewberry responded, right?
Dewberry sent a response, and then the other ones through a Google search, very specific Google search. Michael Martin Engineering, Virtual Resources Group, and then like the last one is Cityscape that reached out to the city after hearing about the project.
Can I see my?
Dewberry in Massachusetts from?
I'll show.
All the firms listed here are headquartered out of Massachusetts, except for Advanced Engineering Group is Providence, Rhode Island.
But Advance didn't make a.
But they did not make a proposal.
And Martell is out of New Hampshire.
And Martell Engineering, Woburn, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
And Dewberry's out of Massachusetts.
And Dewberry is out of Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts. The instructions given to them was that we need expertise in reviewing the tower structure. The variance request in the fall zone was mentioned. Specifically, I also mentioned that they have to have structural engineers on board in the firm and with experience with wireless communication towers. And so all these did qualify for that.
And the other two, one of them excludes looking at some drawings and existing site conditions. So I'm not sure how you would do a peer review without looking at what the site I don't have the doc, unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, but in my opinion, they've excluded things that ought to be included in a structural peer review.
Is that not the one?
Yeah.
Because I have here what they said that they would or would not do.
Is your mic on?
Yes, but I'm probably not really close to it. I was just saying to Peter that I have a copy of the Martell quote, and if you want to, I could just go through what they said they would or would not do.
Yeah, it would be worth, so the audience, so the public can also hear.
Yep, sure. So the quote from Martell commented that they would review the basis of the design, which they would review all the engineering data that was supplied, including the geotechnical, if it's provided to him. They would review the foundation they would review the foundation and soil interaction. They would review and check that professional standards were used in regards to the design to the brake mechanism, which is the concern about allowing the cell tower to collapse at the 85-foot radius. There was a question if they would check the calculations. He was unsure of what that question was referring to in regards to calculations. And would the findings provide suggested corrections? And the decision, then this is just, he just specified that it would be a review only and would only confirm that the correct procedures were followed and as well as standard engineering practices. They would not make any corrections.
Having heard that, one of the things that they should list is the basis of what the original designer did. so that they're doing their calculations based on an understanding of what the engineer did. Because if they don't have that, they may make assumption that may be in conflict with what the original designer did. And they should provide, if they're going to just provide a report with no suggestions, then you have to go back to the designer and here's the problems you have. Usually in peer review, you have the original engineer, the peer reviewer kind of making comments and then, collaborating to end up coming with a solution. So without that activity, you don't necessarily get what you want for a final design or instructions to make it installation.
Yeah, I mean, knowing X is incorrect and without knowing, okay, well, then we should be doing this instead. It's not very useful us in making a decision.
So generally speaking, they're at minimum each going to review the packet and let us know whether it meets certain guidelines, whether it's safe, right? But the one that you're talking about, Martell, the one you have, they will not recommend, they won't go, and I could appreciate that. They're not going to give opinions to the applicant about what to do next.
Well, if you're doing a peer review, that's what you do.
That's what you do, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've done peer reviews and I've had my work peer reviewed. And usually when the peer review is saying to you, here's a problem, you end up having to resolve that problem so you know what needs to get done for it to have it be compliant.
Gotcha.
So if they make a statement that there's a problem, what is the original engineer going to do to correct that? So there's usually a dialogue between the peer review engineer and the original designer.
But the tower has to meet all federal and state requirements.
Yes.
before you goes in.
Yeah. And again, in the proposal, they reference TIA, which is a telecommunications standard that has construction techniques and requirements that's in it. And again, that's what the original proposal from the developer was saying they're going to do.
So what are we going to do? You have a suggestion?
Well, certainly the proposal from Cityscape, if you eliminate evaluation of FCC radio frequency exposure, I think there's some things in there they're providing that aren't needed as a structural review. Certainly, excuse me.
Go ahead. Somebody online must have said something. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think, their proposal from a structural point of view is a very good one. The problem is they've included things that confuse what we're going to be able to hand over to the developer.
I mean, this is their proposal. If we like things about what they're offering and things that we don't need, could we not go back to them and say, okay, we don't need this portion of it reviewed?
We should clarify this and, kind of redline it and say, here's things that you've included. Please explain why, in our opinion, don't need, an evaluation of FCC radio frequency compliance. And again, I'm sure we'll probably hear that from our expert later, but certainly in this proposal, I don't think that's necessary.
I need help personally to understand what. So if you have a suggestion, Peter, I'll give you the three of them, or you want to go back out, whatever you think, or you want to find more details before we decide.
Yeah, I make a suggestion that we take these three proposals, review them, come out with a statement now, a new statement or proposal, requirement of work, and then send it back to these folks and say, here's what we want. In Dewberry's proposal, they exclude review of site drawings pending geotech report. I don't know how you do a peer review without having that information to do a structural peer review.
All right. Do you have any suggested language that we? What should we tell these people who have applied for this?
Well, I think we need to take. I mean, you want to do it? This could take some time before we're going to do it at the meeting.
Well, we have to. I think the public should know what we're going to do. So yeah, I think we can take the time to do it. But I'm relying on your experience to guide us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I can maybe provide a little bit of clarification on Dewberry's proposal. He did contact me and ask me if there's a geotechnical report and calculations, foundation calculations. It's typically what they review. And so I asked the applicant, do they have that? And they said, no, that's done later. We'll do a geotechnical report and foundation calculations. So that's why they excluded those things, because they're not before us currently.
Okay, I see. Michael, I have a question for you. I'm looking, yeah.
Yes.
Michael Cronin, thank you. Obviously, safety is of utmost concern to us, and part of the safety is obviously in the construction of the base of the tower itself. Is that what gets calculated later? Is that what you're saying? Those calculations are not there yet?
The calculations for the base?
Yeah. So what are the things that are missing, Eric? Read that again, please.
They responded to the request for peer review cost estimate. They asked for a copy. They believe they weren't submitted all the information that was given to the city, a geotechnical report and foundation calculations. Neither of those have been given to the city yet as part of this application. The applicant, Viridian Wireless, and the representative said that comes later.
All right. So what's a what are those two things, Michael? Geotechnical report and the foundational stuff.
Foundation calculations.
Got it. Foundation calculations.
I can't tell you the exact specifications of it because I'm not an engineer.
No,
But
what are they in general? Why are they not here now? Why are they later?
The geotech report, if I'm not mistaken, is basically a calculate or like an understanding of the layers underneath the ground to see what needs to be added in order to make the base structurally sound. If George, do you think you might be able to further explain this better?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see you though.
Okay. What we do is typically, okay, when you apply for the building permit, the building inspector takes the geotech report and issues a building permit. We can't go on the property and cut trees down until we get a permit for the special permit and a variance. Then we will cut a road in and do the geotech.
Right, but if safety is our concern and how you build that foundation is our concern, how do we get a peer to review what you're deciding to do?
I thought that would be the building inspector's role in this, to be able to, evaluate the foundation of the tower.
I'll speak on behalf, at least the comments from the building inspector. He's looking for that to be provided to him. He's a one-person office, and for him to take the time to do that, it's very difficult. So he's asking for professional support to have that take place. So when the administrative process is in place, he's being helped to do that process.
If I can just add my input here, typically when we do these things, the permit will be approved with a contingency that the base and the geotech is approved by the building inspector. So these are things that if we were granted the special permit, then we would begin doing work, begin laying the foundation, getting foundation calculations, and then work with the building inspector to get those approved.
I understand what you're saying. So let's think about this particular application in the context of what you're saying. We have built into our zoning ordinance a safety valve, which is that if the structure were to fall, it would have to be at the distance from the tower to the nearest safe point would have to be the height of the tower. So under those circumstances, if God forbid that tower fell, it would be in the safety zone and it would fall down and nobody would be around because we've determined that it would fall within a safety zone. Here, you're asking for a variance. Not talking specifically about what that means in terms of the laws of Massachusetts and gaining a variance. The factual piece of the variance is that you're asking us to accept the design that you have, which is that the tower will snap in half under stress conditions. But in order for that to happen, again, I'm not an engineer, but I do play with erector sets and things of that nature. The ground would have to be holding that pretty firm for the thing to snap. So if the pressure is low at that area, then the tower could actually fall down. So for me, that's a threshold question, the safety piece. The rest of it, I appreciate, there are codes and our peer review will make sure that they're satisfied that you've at least, done the minimum or maybe more than the minimum that's necessary. So I don't know about the rest of the board, but I think I need to know now how you're going to build that base. If you're asking us to accept your premise that you've designed something where the middle will snap off. If you're not willing, if you're just going to say to us, well, you have to accept that that's our design, or if the peer review says, yes, that design is engineered so it will snap off, the question that I asked you in the beginning is going to be the question that we're going to ask the peer review ultimately. And if you have not given them the specifics of how that's going to be done, then we're going to end up in a place where we don't have enough information. So I personally feel uncomfortable relying on the building inspector to make that final decision. And I don't think it's incumbent upon the building inspector to make that decision. I think you're coming to us with something that's different. You're promoting it as being as safe as a fall zone. Therefore, I think it's incumbent upon you to give us, and therefore our peer review experts, a chance to say they're correct, it will be safe, or they're not correct, or nobody knows if they're correct. So that's a problem. Anybody else thinking along the same lines?
Yeah, and the building inspector is one who initiated the suggestion for a peer review to provide him the assistance to do all the things you've just explained, David. Yeah. It's just now, do we have the appropriate scope of services to accomplish what the building inspector is looking for?
Right. So, by taking this out of the safety zone, the fall zone, which is obviously it could move some feet if there was a wind knocking it over, but that's a big deal. So I don't know if you have an answer for me or not, but that puts me on hold with respect to the peer review piece.
Yeah, so again, the getting the geotech and the base foundations requires us to enter upon the property and begin doing work to it, and that's something that's not typically done until we get an approval from the city or the town. If it is something that is concerning you, my suggestion would be to continue the peer review process through to the approval of the base. So, you proved the structural design of the pole, because the pole is designed to collapse that way if the base is strong. And you issue the special permit with a contingency that the peer has to also review the foundations and everything once those are in place and once we have the geotech report and all that. So then that way that there's some kind of guarantee that we are going to be able to move forward with this project, and that the investment that we put into the land isn't going to be for nothing. That's typically how I would suggest to do it. But your concerns are founded. I understand it totally, and it's not something that we specifically are familiar with, including myself, because I'm just an attorney. I'm not an engineer or anything. But the way that these poles are designed is, if the base is sound, then the pole will fold over in that way. And if your peer is going to review the structural part, then that's part of what they're going to review. And then if we go into the property and begin the geotech and the foundation calculations, then everything else will fall into place and work as it should.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. When we were listening to Mark, isn't that what Mark's intention was to have the peer review process so he could work in issuing a permit?
It was during a technical review group meeting that Mr. Snow's comments were that for the tech review meeting, he was questioning a letter from an engineer that was saying that they reviewed the structure in the tower, and he was asking if that was a peer review. He wanted a peer review and a second entity to look at that, but just for the safety of the tower. It wasn't more about assisting him in his process. It was just, he wanted a surety that the tower was safe.
Okay, fair enough. But what I'm asking for is about the safety, so it's within that purview. I don't know what to say, Michael. I mean, I'm happy. It would be at your expense to hire a peer review person, company to ask these questions and make sure that our board is educated on the things to me, make sort of feel like common sense about how we're approaching this. But remember, you're asking for a variance from our height requirement. And it feels like you're only halfway there if you're trying to have a peer review the break-off point, if you can't tell us for certain that the foundation will support that happening. So it's, if this was a situation where you weren't asking for a variance and it was just a special permit and we were satisfied that the safe zone requirement had been met, of course, we don't want anything to fall down, but a falling down of a tower in the safety zone would be something different than the falling down of a tower that lands on Fairman Road. So again, we're volunteers. Luckily, we have an engineer on board, but these questions have to be answered. To me, it's just common sense. So I need some guidance from you. I'm happy to continue this road with peer review. I can ask the peer review person the question I'm asking you and see maybe I'm incorrect, but I'm giving you fair warning that that's my biggest concern, or one of my biggest concerns is the safety piece. Which,
Yeah, of course. That's totally
which
understandable.
Which you're varying, or you're asking to vary. So, okay. Well, thank you for your responses. I feel like because of what I've just said and because of what we have just learned, one of us or all of us or some of us should speak with some of these engineers and discuss in greater detail what the process is like, and the fact that this is a more special situation where they're asking for a variance in the structure, and see if these are the kinds of things that answer the questions that can be answered with what they have now, and if they need more, then we'll come back to the applicant with what we need.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like just listening to everyone that this is really a two-part process here. It's almost like we need a peer review of the tower itself, and with going on the assumption that the base will hold the structure, and then get a peer review of would it actually break? Have they done is everything in place that it would actually break the way it's supposed to? And then if it passes that test, then it's a secondary test of like, okay, is your geotech report supporting that it will actually do what it said in the initial report? So
Okay.
I think we've got two peer reviews. We need one before will the tower actually do what it's supposed to if the base is correct? And I understand their point that they can't go do all the things that they need to do to review the geotech information until after some of the work is done, and then say, okay, can we actually create the base we think we can create based on site conditions?
We need a review just on the tower structure.
We're going to need two
Everything
reviews.
else.
It's a two-part process.
Yep.
All right. So the two parts are the tower structure
The
and
tower
the
structure
first,
and
then
and review the breakpoint information that we've been
Right.
given in
and
the
then
engineer's
base
report.
and geotech report.
And then I think at that point, we need to review that information, say, okay, based on everything that we've given for supportive information, do we feel confident in what we've seen that it could then go to the next peer review on the foundation itself?
Would it be better to keep it within the New England area rather than going out of state or out of New England for quicker and faster review?
Unfortunately, all this information came in pretty late, so I didn't get a chance to review it today. But Cityscapes did talk about the fact that they do have customers in Massachusetts. So I'd like to do a little more research on them and find out how, yes, it should be somebody familiar with Massachusetts, as opposed to somebody who isn't. But if it's from Florida, maybe they have places, throughout the country, and they have people in the area who do this, you know, New England, New York area, and they review it all the time.
For example, let's say an engineer says that the foundation has to go down 25 feet in order to be strong enough for that top part to snap.
Yep.
What if they hit ledge at 10 feet?
Then that's gonna be a huge issue.
So it feels like we need to know, we're in control of that process. I don't want it to be post special permit or variance that people are deciding whether, now that they've hit ledge, they're going to make decisions about what's safe or not safe. I think it's our responsibility with this variance to make sure that this tower is safe within whatever degree is appropriate.
Correct, but you know, I also don't want to handicap anybody in not being able to proceed in the sense of, you know, if we get a, you know, chicken and egg situation, at some point we have to decide if it's the chicken or the egg. And either we're going to say no because we can't get to the geotech information, or we're going to say yes, contingent upon. And that, I mean, I realize that's a decision we haven't made yet, and we need more information. I know we've got the public who wants to have their say. They have other concerns beyond just whether the tower is going to break. But, you know, given the fact that if it does fall, it's going to fall, it could fall on a road with traffic and people, you know, that's.
But remember, the variance is the first thing. The first thing is the variance. Can this can we
Can we
vary our
put the type?
rules? And so all of that I'm talking about is with respect to the variance.
Okay.
Not even the
We're
rest
not
of
even
the
getting that far yet. Okay,
application, which
I'm good with that.
may
I'm
have
good with
other
that.
things that I haven't really thought about. Okay.
Can I interject,
Please.
David, for a second? I've heard that the calculations are going to be done for the structure to sit in place, but in order for that to have happened, someone had to make some assumptions on the geology of the location to do those computations. What they're saying is after we did that, we're going to go now in construction and do geological testing. And if it isn't what they did the design on, then they're going to have to go back and recalculate or redesign the foundation. So those two things ultimately have to happen. And to say the building inspector is going to issue it based on a geological statement, that has to happen. But he's not the person that he's going to do it. He's going to get that information to be able to issue the permit. So, you know.
So are we in agreement that it's okay not to have the foundational and geothermal information as we seek our peer review? Or is that a fundamental question that the peer review people need to help us sort out?
Well, the first part of it, what I've heard is that the peer review is going to do a calculation of the structural design as it's been given to them by the document.
Yep.
Okay, so they say, okay, that makes sense, but they're also going to have to know what were the assumptions that you used to make those calculations for the installation, and then say, well, we'll go forward with that, and as we excavate and look at the geotechnical issues, say, well, now that we know this, those assumptions that were made may not be the correct assumptions.
And then what?
Well, then they go back in that peer review process and say, okay, now that we know this, we have to either make, as you say, make it deeper, or if you run into ledge, you deal with conditions of a structural design that takes ledge into account. So, you know, I'm trying to say.
Are you feeling okay that we wouldn't issue the special permit until we were satisfied that we had that information?
Well, it's you know, we just need to be, we need to have confirmation that when the ultimate construction gets dealt with, it's done correctly
And safely.
And they're the ones who are picking up the dime. So if for whatever through that iterative process increased costs go, that's their issue. We just need someone who's reviewing that process to confirm that is correct.
Yeah, it seems to me that we should not be voting to issue a variance until we know that not just that the assumptions that they've used about geotech are correct, but that in fact the reality of what's there
Is safe.
matches the assumptions.
Yeah, is safe. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so,
think we're all in agreement there.
Yeah, I think so too.
okay. So is this just a conversation that's guiding, a general conversation that will guide us? We want to pick, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Peter, but you have the background. Are you willing to check with people and let us know what you
Yes.
find out?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's it for the peer. So as far as we're concerned, the peer review is still in a state of examining asking questions and seeing what the applicants can do for us in terms of what our needs are. Do you have anything to say on that in that regard, Michael?
No, that's what it sounds like it's going to be doing. So we're going to move this to January, or we're going to be able to present in January. Do you guys have an idea of that?
I mean, I'm always open. I'm always open to. I mean, sooner or later, I'd like to hear a presentation so that we know exactly what you're doing in a verbal capacity, and we could ask you questions about what's going on as well.
Yeah.
If you think before we have a peer review that wouldn't be a good use of your time, then we're pushing it out again. So that's really.
I think that having a full presentation with all of our consultants on would also help to relieve any of those anxieties that you have, or any questions you have about the process, or what it will look like to actually get to the construction of it, because they obviously know more than we do in terms of how that's going to look and how things go in that process. So if your concern is, the process and then the assumptions that are made in terms of geotech and how those relate to the structural, I think it would be a good idea to have everybody on. They can answer those questions for you.
So that means that we would push the big meeting to February.
Yeah, that's what you want. And again, I think that perhaps in January might be good. I mean, depending obviously on the structural peer review process, but it could be possible that you guys would be willing to vote at that point, and then with a contingency of passing the geotechnical peer review, something like that. But ultimately, that's going to be your call.
Okay, so my understanding is that under federal law, we have to move quickly on these applications. You're the applicant. Will you say for the record that this proceeding can continue until February to get the peer review on board and for you to make your full presentation?
I'm not comfortable stating that right now because I'd have to consult with my clients about that.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for clarification purposes for the minutes. Are you suggesting that the presentation happen or not happen in the January meeting?
I would be from unless other members tell me differently, as a zoning board, I'd be happy to have the presentation begin in January so I can start to understand, see in full what's happening, ask the questions I need to ask. If the peer review isn't ready, then the hearing would be continued to February so that those questions could be answered. Michael's saying that he would rather that everything happen at the same time. He would like to see the peer review people meet his people at the meeting itself and be able to talk through so that if there's confusion or if there's need for clarification, that's but I do need, I mean, I guess I could open the hearing and, I mean, we haven't really had any part of this hearing. Well, I don't want this to be that we're delaying anything. So I'm ready for you to make a presentation in January. If you don't want to do that, then you let us know. Okay? No,
we're ready. I think that a presentation in January would be the best way forward.
Okay.
January 9th.
Yeah, I would also like to have a presentation in January if we can do that.
Great.
January would work great because there's nothing else on the agenda but the variance and this continuation.
Thank you. All right. So our next meeting will be January 9th. All right. And we can go ahead.
Just reviewing these, I'd like to do them in conjunction with Mark Snow and Eric as he goes through these documents to kind of make sure that we clearly define what we want, and I kind of understand what they're looking for.
Okay, we'll do that soon.
So, absolutely. Okay.
Yep. Peter, when I get a chance to go actually read through these, are you all right if I send you some
absolutely.
questions
Yeah,
and just things that I spot?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not an engineer, but
no.
sometimes that's,
No,
read through it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. You can join us if you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, let me know, and if I can make that happen, I will.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
George Chanis with Verity. As I listen, I understand about the peer review for the structural part of the tower. The geotech is always done to be able to determine, the amount of concrete and the foundation that will support the tower. Am I understanding correctly that you would like the geotech done as soon as possible?
Yes.
The only problem with that, and the reason that it's done later in the process, is that in order to get the machine in there to do the geotech, some trees have to be cut down and, possibly some damage to the property. And I'd have to ask the landlord if that's permissible for us to do, to be able to get that machine in there.
I'll ask him then.
Yeah, I understand, but that will take place at some point regardless.
It generally takes place later after, because once you receive the permits, then you can go on the property and cut down. And you do take a gamble of an appeal process of either the decision and also the building permit.
I still think the difference here is that you're asking for a variance of what is clearly a very, a strong part of our zoning ordinance with respect to safety, which directly ties into a peer engineer determining for us that what you're going to do out there on the base is safe enough so that the structure will snap in the middle instead of fall over. So this isn't the usual, because you have to overcome, you need a variance to overcome the distance issue.
I respectfully, I understand that. I understand exactly what you're saying. And I will try to accommodate the board by doing a geotech as soon as possible. But I have to, as I mentioned before, I have to go to the landlord, and there are some other factors involved.
That's fine.
But I will try to accommodate the board in their request.
Again, if you need time, that's fine, but you have to be willing to say on the record that you will allow this time to proceed. We're ready to hear you. We've given you our concerns. We're going to go out and talk to and decide about hiring a peer review. And I've given you a heads up on what we've given you a heads up on what concerns us in this unique application, because it does ask for a variance, and that's what's in play here. That's different, maybe, from the other applications that you submit. So you let us know. We're ready for January. If you want a continuance, it has to come from you.
We'll be ready in January.
Okay, good. Okay, the next thing is whether or not to let Dr. Chamberlain, I believe is his name. Kent Chamberlain.
Ken Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And so I'm going to open it up. I'd certainly like to hear from the public. I would not want to hear. Well, I guess I shouldn't say what I don't want to hear. There's 4 people here that want to speak. If you could speak to whatever you need to. Please make it brief at this point, because there's nothing really before us yet. But speak to why we should have Dr. Chamberlain come and speak to us. That's the most important thing. I'd like to hear that, because that's what we're going to decide tonight. It doesn't mean he can never come, but we're going to decide tonight so that he can be forewarned that these are the dates, and so you guys know that that's happened. So, okay, Heather. Is Heather here? Heather. Thanks.
Heather Newell, 33 Laurel Street. I think maybe I can speak to you prematurely. Maybe I have to listen more and come to you in January. Okay,
That's fine.
thank you.
Thank you.
See you in January.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Andrew. And please state your full name for the record.
Good evening. Andrew Vernon, 17 Sunset Square. I'm here this evening wearing two hats. Number one, I'm an employee of Greenfield Community College, part of the impacted coverage zone for this tower. To be clear, today, cellular services are not sufficiently provided to Greenfield Community College, the surrounding area, including outdoor and interior building coverage of cellular services. That is why I am personally in favor of a peer review. The absence or diminished service provided to Greenfield Community College of cellular services in general is a concern today. And based on at least the Viridi diagrams of RF, it also should be a continued concern for ZBA and a peer review done. Secondly, I'm a resident of Greenfield. I live in that neighborhood halfway between Big Y and Greenfield Community College. As a private resident, I also have diminished service in that neighborhood. At present, in example, probably the most dramatic absence of service or diminished service, which you all may be aware of, would be, again, a great example, the Big Y parking lot in that area. The intersection of Route 2 and Coleraine Road also has substantially diminished cellular service. Again, the Big Y parking lot is probably the best glaring example of where service is diminished or absent. The RF studies submitted by Viridi should be reconsidered through peer review. Thank you.
Excuse me, I want to ask you a question. When you say reconsider, aren't they promoting? I'm a little confused with what you're saying. They seem to be promoting that there's a need for service, and it sounds like at the end you said that what they're saying.
So
Someone to say something different, or
I say reconsidered only in that my understanding is that only Viridi submitted. There was no peer review submitted for this hearing. So
that's what we were discussing.
Yeah.
Hire to do that. So you're encouraging us to wait for that, but at the same time, it sounds like you're saying that it's something that you think is necessary in an objective way. The service is necessary in that area.
correct. I am in support of the tower, generally speaking. I don't want to speak to the location, the safety concerns. That's not my interest. My interest is to have the service provided. Because Greenfield Community College, exterior and interior building coverage does not have that service. Secondly, as a resident who lives in the impacted area, that service is not provided. As a resident, I think generally speaking, if you were to ask the community, again, the Big Y parking lot is the most dramatic and best example. And I don't see that being promised through the Viridi RF diagrams. I would also note that in the RF diagrams submitted by Viridi, it also includes the absence of coverage for a significant portion of Greenfield Community College.
Alicia? Yeah, Alicia.
I'm Alicia Bardwell. I live at 68, Alicia Bardwell. I live at 68 Overland Road on the other side of Greenfield. I am an employee at Greenfield Community College, also just coincidentally, who has no cell phone coverage in my particular office that I work in. But I am here just to gather more information. I wanted to get on the list in case I had questions. And I very appreciate the review and the thought that you are all putting into this. And I feel like the petitioner, the folks that are asking for the variance, are looking for the cart before the horse. So I appreciate that you want them to get their facts and information together. And it sounds like it's definitely an investment. So, you know, in any investment, you have to put a little money up front. So I feel that they should probably do a little more homework and give more information. So thank you.
Appreciate the support.
Thanks.
But you didn't, all right, so, Elena, will you speak to the expert?
Yes.
Name and
Do I have to lean forward or can I sit back here? Okay. Alana. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alana Kirschenbaum, and I live at 167 South Shelburne Road in Greenfield. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Before I read the statement I prepared, I just want to let you know that I'm aware of at least 10 people that were going to be here in person last week to speak, but many people have become ill. Some people have left for holiday travel. Some people have children that are sick. Some people have work. They weren't able to change their schedule again. So I just want you to be aware of that I'm going to be saying some things that all of these people also share as well, these ideas. I know we all share the common goal in understanding that the community needs and wants to have good cellular coverage. I know we also want it in the safest and best way possible and without the community harms caused by cell towers inappropriately placed outside of their properly zoned industrial areas. For this reason, it is imperative that the ZBA, along with members of our community, become fully informed on the diverse and significant impacts of placing a 170-foot cell tower so close to residential homes and a school. I want to thank David for authorizing and Eric Twarog for submitting key questions to the applicant that would quantify a true established need for an additional tower in this particular location. As of December 17th, the applicant had not yet provided the requested information. There are many outstanding questions that need to be answered and an array of substantial concerns among residents regarding the proposed tower. For this reason, we are formally requesting that the ZBA hold a presentation with Dr. Kent Chamberlain from the New Hampshire Commission prior to taking any further action on this project. As you know, the New Hampshire Commission is a formal state commission established to study the impacts of cell towers and wireless radiation on communities. Dr. Chamberlain just presented to the town of Heath, Massachusetts, just about 30 minutes away, a few weeks ago, and was invited back to speak next month. His 30-minute presentation to the ZBA would be followed by a Q&A to address any points that need further clarification. At this juncture, it is unequivocally clear that the comprehensive knowledge Dr. Chamberlain is able to provide as a no-cost public service to our town is much needed. In alignment with the Commission's findings and what Dr. Chamberlain has already shared with you via his letter, we know there are many issues that need to be further understood and investigated as we discuss putting a cell tower so close to homes and a school. We must be especially mindful of the precedents we would set by approving this special use permit. Allowing this kind of zoning variance would require solid proof and evidence that a tower was absolutely necessary in this location and that there were no other viable engineering or placement options. Dr. Chamberlain can help navigate all of these critical components. It is essential that Greenfield welcomes and seizes this important opportunity prior to taking further action on this tower. From a community standpoint, we don't see any rationale for not doing so. I urge the ZBA to approve Dr. Chamberlain's presentation this evening, and I thank you so much for your time.
I have a question for you.
Oh, sure.
Is Heath Dr. Chamberlain sent a letter to the ZBA.
Yes, I have it.
Did that come from you or from him? Did he send
No,
this
that came, no,
Did this come-
he sent this directly to you.
Yes.
Can you give me an idea of what will he talk about what's in this letter? There were some questions that you seem, you and the people that you're working with had about the effects of the waves and from the cell tower being so close. And I was under the impression that this gentleman was the person that would help us understand that. Is that true or not?
We understand clearly that there's a law that you can't deny this tower because of health or environmental concerns. There is extensive scientific, peer-reviewed, non-industry research pointing to biological harm. Kent Chamberlain was a member of a 13-person subject matter expert commission in New Hampshire. You had various specialists that came together, not funded by industry, to study wireless radiation, its impact on community in terms of many different areas: zoning, community impacts around safety, property devaluation, many of the concerns that neighbors have. And he goes to communities around the country. He speaks all over the world as a representative of the commission. And his focus is multifaceted. It is not just about the health and environmental concerns. It is about many different issues, as he speaks to in his letter: cybersecurity, etc. One of the women that is sick that couldn't come tonight asked if I could possibly read her statement, which I'd be happy to do. Kent, I don't know if Kent is Zooming in at all tonight. He was planning to do so last week, but I don't know if he was able to make some time to do that. If he could speak to that, if he is available, or if there's anyone on Zoom that would like to speak to Kent's expertise more fully. But I don't know if the Zoning Board of Appeals has had a chance to read his letter where he discusses various issues. It's, as you can see, it's not just about the health.
No, I read it.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand more than anything. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to trick you into an answer. I need to understand.
Yeah.
Okay. I think do you have any board members have questions about Dr. Chamberlain?
No, not at this point.
My only question is, when did we get that letter?
December 9th. I have a copy of it here.
Was it sent to us on December 9th? I didn't download it, so.
Yes, I got it offline from Eric.
Okay. No, it just helps me pull it up.
Eric Quarry, would you send us a hard copy of that letter, please?
A hard copy or do you email? You want a hard copy of it?
Yeah, I don't want to have, oh yeah, either one will do fine.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody up on the screen?
Anybody in the room that wants to talk? That's not an applicant? Please, come on. Just please.
Point of order, David. We can't really hear you. Is your mic on?
My mic is being used by somebody else. All right. What do you think you missed, Stephanie? I just asked if anybody else was speaking. Go ahead. Please state your name and your address.
Karis Padam, 59 Silver Way.
Okay.
I am here in support of Dr. Kent Chamberlain's presentation. I concur with Ilana, and I would be very much, can you hear me? I would be very much in support.
Move the chair closer. I'm not going to bite you.
I would be very much in support of the zoning board listening to Dr. Chamberlain's presentation and taking that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to speak, please? Name and address, please.
My name is Suzanne Fleury. I'm at 97 Newton Street.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to get up to say that I also am in support of being able to hear Dr. Chamberlain present to us.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
There's a couple of hands up, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Stephanie.
Yeah, I'll just for those on Zoom, traditionally we see a block of all the people and I can see little hands by names. I can't see anything except when it suddenly jumps up and sometimes I'm looking down and I don't look up. So Stephanie, I see you. I don't know if anybody else is speaking, but your name certainly is in front of me. So please, and state your name and address, please.
Stephanie Duclos, 166 Chapman Street. I just am calling in because I really would like us to consider the testimonies of the citizens as equal to consultants regarding their own neighborhoods. Because every developer will bring in a consultant that will obviously support their argument. And a lot of the neighborhoods that these projects are going into are doing like GoFundMes to try to raise enough money for an attorney to represent them. It makes it very difficult for the people who actually live in the poor neighborhoods to fight big projects like this. And I think that it's because often, and I really urge you to listen to what the people who actually have to live with that day in and day out. I mean, you listen to arguments about the noise of a fan going off every few seconds, really impeding on the quality of life of a neighborhood. So I really hope that you do consider and really listen to the sometimes what would seem as an opposing view, but more in fact that these are the people who actually have to live with the decisions. And a lot of times it's developers that are coming out from areas they don't actually have to live with the decisions or the builds of their their own consequences of their own behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on?
Hi, my name is Pam Wallace, and for some reason it was not allowing me to change my name from Safe Tech Board, but I am a actual colleague of Dr. Kent Chamberlain's, and I did come on this evening because he wasn't able to be here, just to again extend his invitation for this presentation. And as Alana mentioned, this is something that Dr. Chamberlain does around the world at the bequest of the New Hampshire Commission, which again, we're talking about a 13-person commission that took a deep dive for over a year into this and submitted a 390-page report on their findings and recommendations. And part of the issue is that recently, over the last few years, we've seen some of the cell towers and small cells being sited near or in residential areas and on schools. So they're putting forth a complex circumstance that hasn't been present before. So communities are having to really take in, like all of the questions that you had this evening are excellent. And these are the types of deep dives that communities need to do in order to understand this more fully, some of the dynamics that are present today, and what the types of solutions are available, including other engineering options that don't necessarily require new towers, using existing infrastructure, or if there's going to be a new tower, where best practices for placement. And so he brings a wealth of information, and he's doing this as a public service to make sure that our communities are educated in the ways they need to be in order to make their best decisions, because this is one tower, but there'll be more, and there'll be more conversations. And so we just want to get communities in the best place they can be and have access to all the expert information they need without charge, just as a public service, so that they can take this good information forward to make their best decisions on their community. So he's very happy to present. His presentation is a 45-minute presentation. It's 35 minutes of information and then 15 or more, whatever at your discretion, of Q&A. So we hope that you'll take us up on this opportunity, and we look forward to seeing you another time. And good luck to everybody with this project and your decision.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else online?
I'm here, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, well, do you wish to speak on the cell tower application?
Oh, am I on? Yeah, I would love to hear this man speak, because I have had personal experience with radio waves and affecting my health. And so I'm very concerned for our community. I mean, I think we should have a tower. I just not sure that's the best place.
Thank you. Did she give her name?
No.
Please give me
Terry Kashner.
and your address.
Did you get that?
Terry Kashner, your address, please.
I'm on Norwood Street.
Okay, thank you.
Laura has her hand up.
Who's Laura? Laura, let's see, Laura.
Hey, my name is Laura Josephs, and my address is 7 Conway Drive in Greenfield. And I'm actually zooming in from work, so I need to keep this short, but I just wanted to also strongly vocalize my support for having the board be able to hear Kent Chamberlain speak. I live fairly near where the proposed tower site is, and my child will be going to the Newton School. So yeah, as someone who's pretty local to the site, I am very glad that Kent's willing to speak and encourage you to take him up on the opportunity. Thank you.
Can we take this person off? Just so she feels more private?
I don't know how to do that. I'm trying to change the view over all these different things. It doesn't work.
Do you know how? Oh, looks like she's going to turn it off. I'm sorry, we can't get you off the screen. You'd have to do it yourself. You'd have to turn off the camera on your own computer. Otherwise, sadly, we're going to keep looking in your home. Yes, that's not a bad idea. A cloth. The old-fashioned way. There we
Baseball
go.
hat.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience. It's Terry, right? Okay. Sorry, Terry. All right. Anybody else want to speak? Was there Kate?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi there. I live at 94 Meridian Street, and my name is Kate Broughton. And I definitely think it's important to have someone who has studied all of the ramifications, both from an economical development perspective, health, quality of life, and all that. I noticed, though, earlier it was mentioned that the owner of this property has subdivided the parcel. And I think that we need to also think about this tower within the context of what else is planned for this parcel, because we recently saw the development of a storage facility that's quite extensive. And what else is in store for us in addition to this potential tower? You know, Precinct 7 has been bifurcated. It's one of the most strangely configured neighborhoods. And much of it is urban residential. So whatever happens, whether it's, you know, all the development going up on the Mohawk Trail with the Aldi, with Starbucks, all the gridlock that's going to be happening up there, we're all concerned not just about one isolated thing like the cell tower, but everything that's going on in this part of our community. We're the gateway to Greenfield, coming from many different directions. And so my thought is, as we talk about this particular cell tower, I'm very interested in this parcel and what else might be in store, because this could just be the beginning of another chip away at affecting a neighborhood that deserves better. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Anyone else?
Laura has a hand up.
Bring in Laura.
Didn't Laura already speak?
Yeah, the hands usually go down, but that was
Okay.
still up. Maybe she didn't get it down. So, okay. I guess we heard everybody, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else here live that wants to say anything? Okay. So, what do people think about inviting Dr. Chamberlain to a meeting?
Let's do the peer review first.
Well, certainly, I think it would be worth doing that. We just, from a time perspective, how do you coordinate having them give that presentation? That's a 45-minute block of time. And then the presentation from the developer, that's probably, I would think, an hour maybe by the time they go through all the details and there's some discussion. So, should we, if we, and I think we should have that as soon as possible, but in the context of how do we do that at the hearing, before or after the presentation, David?
I think it would be beneficial if we're going to hear from the applicant as well as from Dr. Chamberlain, that, is a benefit to the public that we do them in the same meeting so people aren't, trying to meet two different meetings to cover this, ultimately the same material. And I kind of like, I know it's a big chunk of time, but I kind of like hearing both of them together. I think the applicant would go first and then Dr. Chamberlain can, speak there, and then we can ask questions of them both.
Remember, we also have a peer, I'm expecting a peer review person to be at the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just procedural question. Doesn't the board have to vote as a board on the peer reviewer? And if that can't take place till your next meeting?
That's correct. We are not going to vote. The peer review people will not be here next time because we have to vote on it. Well, okay. So can we break it into two parts? One is anyone opposed to Dr. Chamberlain coming and speaking to the board?
No, I'm not.
I'm not. I'm in favor.
We're in favor. Okay. So let's I'd like to make a motion that Dr. Chamberlain be invited to speak to the board during the proceeding before we vote on the before we vote on what the applicant has presented us. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Let the record show we're unanimous. Okay. It would seem to me that the concern I have is that if Dr. Chamberlain was part of the if he was part of the application, then I'd want, of course, to have that happen sooner than later. But in terms of how this process works, the applicant goes and gives their presentation. The peer review is there to help us define that presentation. And then, like I would at any zoning application, I'd open it up to the public. If the public wants to provide us with someone who will speak to us for 45 minutes, we've already voted that we're willing to listen to him, whereas normally we would give people 3 or 4 minutes to speak. So I just want you to understand, you folks in the audience and those online, that the procedure is the applicant makes their presentation, peer review, and then it would be Dr. Chamberlain. So you might, I'm happy to get in touch with Dr. Chamberlain directly. I guess I need some guidance on that. I'm really not supposed to do any of that stuff, but just because he's going to come and make a presentation, he should at least understand what our procedures are. But the point is that he would have to be ready to go at either the January or February meeting, but I can't tell you which meeting that would be at this point.
And if I can interject, it's Pam again. I'm happy to arrange that, and he will be willing to accommodate whatever you guys need. He understands, he does this all over the country, so he understands your constraints. So if you give the go-ahead, I can have him be in touch with you?
Yeah, the board has voted the go-ahead, and the question is when.
Perfect, and he'll be available whenever it suits you best, okay?
Do you think he'll be here live, or will he be on Zoom?
Well, I think it depends. If it's in February, he has a hearing elsewhere in the country, but it depends on the date. So do you know the February date?
It's the second Thursday of the month, 13th.
Okay, so I have to check and see what that date is. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but he lives a couple hours away, so there is a possibility of being in person, but obviously if there's other conflicts, he'll Zoom in and both are seamless for him and hopefully will work well for you.
Okay, please have him direct any communication to Eric Turog, who will then forward it to me and the board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will do.
All right.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If we have the presentation from Dr. Chamberlain, is it strictly informative, or is it going to be used as part of the process of impacting our decision-making?
Well, the question would be, if we were in the middle of the special permit component of this process, not necessarily, the variance also, but certainly the special permit, is the impact on the neighborhood. So how's that different than if for 2 hours we had people speaking about what they felt was going to be their impact to the neighborhood, or we had someone as an expert, which we have to decide how we're going to weigh the expertise. But I think everything that comes to us, many of the things that come to us are important, but clearly the community has a right to speak, and it's the impact on their neighborhood is relevant. Not that Dr. Chamberlain's testimony is relevant. I haven't heard what he has to say, but generally speaking, what the neighborhood has to present to us is relevant. And it's one of the standards that we have to go by. So we'll use that. We'll use as we see fit the information that we get from him or anyone else in the neighborhood. So that's how I would look at it. I don't feel like Dr. Chamberlain is the be all and end all, but I think on the other hand, he's the community wants him to represent a point of view, which is something that we will listen to, and then we can weigh how to use it in our deliberations.
Thank you.
That's on the record. Okay, one last chance. We're going to the next part of the agenda.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And it's relevant to what one of the gentlemen in the audience said about coverage being lacking right now at Big Y and at GCC. Has there been anything from the applicant that assures us that in fact those issues will be addressed by this new tower? Because I don't remember in looking through all their materials anything specific other than there's coverage lacking.
Whether there was an RF study or a cell coverage study done.
That's a good question.
If I can interject,
Yeah, thank you.
those materials were made part of the application.
Thank you.
There were.
They're in there, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. So if that's it for this application, can I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 14th, 2024?
Before we do make a motion to
Suspend
the meeting till whatever the next date is.
Go ahead. We'll continue.
That's right. Yeah, a motion to continue the meeting till January.
To consider the hearing on this application until January 9th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Is the applicant okay with that, for the record? Please say yes. No, you have to say it.
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show it was unanimous. Okay. Now there's a motion on the floor, which has been seconded to approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2024 meeting. Any discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show it was unanimous. Although one person whispered at the end.
Should I abstain from that since I was not at that meeting?
You can say out loud that you're abstaining.
I abstain.
Okay, Eric Green abstains because he was not at that meeting. Any correspondence that we need to read? Okay, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show it was unanimous. Meeting's adjourned.